I don't know why I just decided to make this face like right from the get-go. But what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the live stream here. This is episode, is it 9? We got 9? You're still on mute, Elon. Yeah, I still can't hear you. There you go. Yeah. Hey, I told Elon, mute yourself.
9 now, yes.
It is episode 9, which is wild. So we are here again. This is, I want to say 9th week in a row, but we did take like a week or two off. It's a week, right?
A week.
So, yeah.
Spring break.
Yes, spring break. Oh, sorry, I was going to lift my shirt up, but nobody wants to. That's after the stream. We got an OnlyFans we'll link to in the description. I'm kidding. We don't have any of that. But yeah, so episode after party, yes. So episode 9, we are here. Man, it feels like we just started this thing and like we're already almost 10 episodes in. Did you know that most podcasts never make it past like episode 3 or 5? People give up. Like, we don't give up, even though nobody listens. We don't give up. I'm kidding. We appreciate each and every one of you guys that tune in live here on our YouTube channels, and also for all of you that listen through, like in podcast form through all of your favorite podcast platforms. So Spotify, Apple Music, all of that stuff. So we definitely appreciate you. Shout out to everybody in Denmark. Are they still our top? Like one of our top?
Still U.S., Denmark, Canada.
Wow. So... well, thank you to everyone else that does not fall into those 3 regions for tuning in and listening to us. We always want to hear from you, so leave a comment, join us live here, and excuse me. So we have a few people in the chat already saying hi. So AA is here. Hi. Who's ready? I don't know. I'm not ready. I was late getting here. Can you tell? I'm sweating. I'm always very shiny anyway up here. It's turtle wax and olive oil, in case anyone's wondering. Normally, no, I'm just kidding. No, just bald. I'm just bald. So, AA, thank you for joining us. Elias is here, 1981. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And AA, we do tend to try to make Tuesdays less boring. I don't know if it's...
Yay!
Hopefully it's working for you guys. Yeah. So... oh, and Joel is here. Joel, he's one of our weekly attendees, I believe. And thank you, Joel, for sticking around. I said thank you with an S.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel. So thank you for joining in and witnessing our level of crazy. This is still toned down, would you say?
Oh,
from like us, yeah. I think that would definitely be a, not safe for work.
Yeah, compared to our conversations we have just between the two of us, yeah.
Yes, even earlier today, we had a conversation. My wife witnessed that one, and she was just, we drove home like this, and she was like, she couldn't believe like what we were saying to each other. It was great. But thank you, Joel, for joining. And Elias is actually in from Puerto Rico, so woohoo! Thank you so much for joining us here. So, this is our weekly live stream / podcast. So if you're listening live, feel free to post your questions. I'll throw up our little banner here that we typically have. General questions we typically try to answer at the end of the stream, or if we have a little downtime. If you could put a GQ in front there, and that will allow us to see it easily. However, if you have a topical question, which is something we are talking about right this second or right this even 5 minutes ago, throw a TQ in front there, and that way we can tag it easily, and it just allows us to kind of both see that. And also, if you're listening live, watching live, super chats and super stickers are enabled on both of our channels. So if you're watching either way, it just shows your support for us. Elon's looking right now because I don't think he enabled it.
I did. I was making sure.
Okay. Yeah, but they are not required. But there's just a way for you to show your support outside of just watching. And we definitely appreciate any of it. We do this stuff for we'd love to make it our full-time jobs to kind of do YouTube full-time. I'm still technically doing that full-time, but I freelance on the side, but I would love to. So just watching helps, putting a little money in doesn't hurt either, but it's not required. That's just an extra way to show your support, and we just totally appreciate you guys, just for even like showing up. So like, don't feel obligated to donate at all. We are,
I will say, even with these topics that aren't exactly specifically home audio
yeah,
related, because I know, at least in past episodes, the podcast as well, not as many people tune in when we just talk about movies, but
yeah,
you and
and
I are
that's
both really big fans of movies and cinema and filmmaking, so
yeah,
we just want
yeah,
to talk about it, man.
yeah. And I think like there's a we love home theater, and our channels are very home theater centric, audio, video. But sometimes like we have those passions outside of that, and that's kind of what this is. It's just extra extra content in addition to what we would normally post. I say that for you right now. I haven't posted anything in a while, so this is my main breadwinner. No, but I actually have both of the revamp videos pretty much edited. I'm doing voiceover on them right now. I'm hoping to have the first one out tomorrow, and
Ooh,
then the second
nice.
one out Saturday or Sunday. So kind of a 2 for 1. So that should be fun. Excited to share that with you guys. Yeah. So before we get started, Elon, anything you've been working on? Anything you want to talk about before we dive into these topics?
Well, at least speaking with yours, is that going to be a two-parter, or is there going to be a third part too?
It's just, right now it's just 2 parts.
Yeah.
And initially it was, we talked about it's 3 hours long, and then I got it kind of whittled down to about an hour and a half. And currently each video is sitting at about half an hour each. So instead of releasing a 1 hour long video with chapter markers, I'm releasing two 30-minute long videos with chapter markers, obviously, just to kind of ease the, I want to kind of get something out right now.
Yeah.
You know, both of them are basically edited, but the second part I'm going to actually work on after I kind of release the first part. Just because it's been a while since I uploaded, and I really just kind of want to get something out. I'm also doing an impressions video on multi-EQX, with just kind of a general first impression, what I'm talking about. So that should be out sometime next week, followed by hopefully the first part or maybe one of the tutorial videos. So for
I thought you were
mini
gonna
DSP.
say like a impressions of actors that you were gonna
Yeah.
do
So
for our entertainment.
Christopher Walken. Is it? No, I'm not gonna do. Maybe Jiminy Glick. We'll just throw in a little Jiminy Glick in there. What's your big beef with the Nazis? You know, something like that.
Right.
He always cracks me up. But yeah. So anything you've been kind of working on yourself that you want to talk about? You just posted a video. Was it today or yesterday?
Yeah, it
Was
was
it about
today.
the Sony? Okay.
Yeah. Because I was trying to get it posted on Monday just because that way it didn't coincide with this live stream, but whatever. I just posted it this morning anyway, because why not have content?
Why not?
Just post it when I can post it. But yeah, all the new Sony stuff that's headed my way, I'm very excited about. A Bravia 7 TV, I believe, which is not the flagship, but it is still part of the premium tier, I believe. And it is my first, it's my first TV that I will be reviewing on my channel, which is exciting. Because all the other TVs I've used in my theater, I've purchased on my own and just kept it in there. I've had my LG C9 in there ever since I built the theater. But this is also my first foray into mini LED.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts
LG
on
is
that.
OLED. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know with mini LED, typically, for those that don't know, there's like OLED, there's just traditional, like kind of full array LED. Well, LED, there's full array, and then there's like edge lit. But full array is kind of the more common, especially as you get in the higher end sets when you're talking about LED. And then there's micro LED and then mini LED, not particularly in that order, but mini LED has a lot of the benefits of like an OLED, where you can kind of get the deep inky blacks that kind of each pixel turns off. I believe, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I'll be doing my research before that.
Yeah.
Honestly, to be frank, I'm probably going to pull you aside and like ask some things before I start reviewing it, because you know a lot more about monitors and TVs than I do.
As I
So
just said, I probably said what mini LED is. So I need to do more research. Here's the problem I have, and this is before we even get into the topic and everything. But I typically, especially with like display tech, I don't start researching new technology in depth until I'm interested in getting something, or
yeah,
someone's wanting to send me a product, right? So I need to look at mini LED and micro LED. I know micro LED right now is just so it's so like it's not even like breaking through the industry. Mini LED is kind of all the
yeah,
hot craze right now, you know. So I'm interested to see where they go with it. I know like I think TCL has like a 10,000 nit TV, which is crazy. I don't even. There's not even a lot of content at 10,000 nits, which is
hmm,
you know a lot. A lot of it doesn't even exceed 4,000 or sometimes even 2. So, be curious to see something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, dude, yeah, for sure. I'll send you my rates.
Thank
When
you.
we get done here.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, they normally charge by the minute. But
Okay.
but yeah, so just real quick, Elias says I hear Elon talking about the Sony Quad HT and it looks very interesting.
Yeah, man. Because for the longest time, I've been kind of hassling, not hassling, but like every month or so, I just kind of set a reminder email to my Sony contact. I'm like, hey, more
Yeah,
time has passed. The Sony HT-A9 has been out for a couple years now. It can't be that popular where you can't just get me even just a demo unit that I can send
yeah,
back. But for whatever reason, some other stuff came up and like they just couldn't get me a unit. But because I had my Zoom meeting with my Sony contact about all of
hmm
this new stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, man, we'll send you pretty much everything. We'll send you the sound bars. We'll send you the theater U that goes around your neck. We'll send you the new Sony Quad, the theater Quad." And he's listing all these things. I'm like, really?
yeah,
Because previous to this, all they have sent me is the HT A3000 soundbar system
okay,
with the smaller wireless surrounds and the smaller SW3 sub. So I mean, it was at that particular point, it was right when I got my relationship finally with someone from Sony.
yeah.
So I could see how they're a little trepidatious sending me just like a whole bunch of really expensive stuff. But yeah, it was very surprising to me that they're like, yeah, we're just gonna send you everything. So I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. So, but yeah, that in particular, the Theater Quad is the successor to the HTA9. So I am very excited to check out the supposedly revamped and better version of 360 spatial sound mapping.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew obviously a successor to the HTA9 was going to come out at some point. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I'm going to be one of the first to get one of those units to review. So it's
Yeah. And then you could just send it to
very
me
cool.
and then I'll check it out.
Yeah,
Hey, yeah.
exactly.
I am curious to hear your thoughts on that too. I try to, Elon, believe it or not, there's a few, when you're in this space, like the home theater space, I tend to not watch too many other videos. I try to support people, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's like it can just get kind of out of hand. Like I don't want everyone to like try feel like I'm biased or steal ideas. So like if someone's doing a review for something, I'll typically like, it's hard to what, but like Elon's videos typically are one of the few that I do watch, even if I don't like have an interest in the product he's reviewing, right? So like for instance, the sound bar, I was like really curious to like hear what you thought of that. So basically it's
Thanks.
just a way like someone said a while ago that it's basically two guys like kissing each other's asses. So that's I just want to do that right now to get out of the way. But otherwise, Elon, you suck. Um,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
so
Yeah.
see, we just I try to offset the balance.
Yes.
Uh,
Yin and yang.
yin and yang. But yeah, so we have another comment that says, "Great podcast, guys. You both rock. Keep doing the great work. Thank you so much."
Thank you.
Joel Gonzalez says, "Do impressions of other YouTubers, Youthman, etc." Oh man, that's a well. I got an
That's a
Elon
slippery slope
Osborne.
right there.
That's an Elon Osborne, and I hang out with Youth Man. Talk to him quite a bit.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't have
Youth Man, he's the one that got you into YouTube, wasn't he?
yeah, somewhat. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he's kind of responsible for the rebranding of the channel because I met him, talked to him, and then yeah, at the time I was doing like gaming videos, or I had done gaming videos, and I was like, it's just like I'm burnt out, man. I've only made like 10 videos, and like it sucks. And so I rebranded to Home Theater Gamer, and yeah, that's where I'm at now, and yeah, almost hitting 20,000 subscribers, which is wild. But yeah, I might work on that. I've been working on the Elon. I can't hit his octave, but I could probably do a Youth Man. The more I hang out with Gene De La Sala, I might develop an impression of him. Who knows? Yeah, maybe Jordan. Haterade Cowboy Cinema. I'll work on one there. I need to get a hat and put it on back. I'm kidding, Jordan. Jordan's actually here, and that's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
So he says rock on, guys. Sorry, Jordan, poking having a little fun here. He says now I know why views are low because Brad not watching my videos. Hey, you know what? I've actually wanted to give Jordan a shout out real quick. He is, I think he's still trying to get to 10,000 there. On his channel, he's actually started posting Kaleidoscape reviews on his channel as well. So don't think I don't see the videos you post, Jordan. I do. But yeah, go check out his stuff if you're interested in kind of the more higher end, the stuff that I personally can't afford. Jordan's covering it, so like go and check that out. And yeah, very cool. So go show him some love and support, and maybe one day we'll get together and make a collaboration video. And yeah. I will do my best Jordan impression. Justin Laird is here. We'll wait for the new room update video. This is actually killing me. If you're just joining, I just talked about it briefly earlier. Rewind. No, I'm just kidding. I'll just say it again real quick. I finished the edit on both of them. It's actually 2 videos. The first one I'm hoping to release tomorrow, if not Thursday, and then the second one Saturday or Sunday, followed by, like tutorials and like a multi-EQX impressions video, things like that. Not to be confused with an impression video of other YouTubers. That will be coming maybe Halloween. Halloween might be pretty cool to do that. I'll like get outfits and everything and just dress up. Having actually have them on the video or in the video if they're local. That'd be pretty cool. Be like, hey, what the heck are you doing? Anyway. All right. So, yeah. So thank you guys for hanging in there. And we're going to get started. Elon, do you want to talk about kind of what we're going to be talking about in this video, why we picked this topic, other than, just our love for cinema and stuff?
Well, it's this growing trend where I just keep seeing news about movies that are coming out into the theaters. Typically, yes. It seems like the only content or films or art that is worthy of being in the theater or the cinema, whatever you want to call it, are very high budget, flagship, tentpole, whatever nomenclature you want to use, franchises, because supposedly right now that's the only thing that is going to make money in the theater. It seems like gone are the days of one-off, original, very good stories that you can see in the theater, because typically those kinds of stories, it's just a lot cheaper to just put them out on a streaming platform like Max or Disney Plus or Netflix. And I get it. I remember when Prey first came out on Hulu. I think, not too many not too many movies come out exclusively on Hulu for the first time. So that was interesting. But it turned out to be a really good movie. I think it actually did get maybe a small release in theaters for a very short time.
Maybe,
but
you might be right.
But they were pushing the Hulu angle, like way more than the fact that it was, you could actually see it in theaters. But it's just, yeah, because I read an article saying that Will Smith is in development trying to make a new I Am Legend. And it just kind of got my wheels spinning inside my head about this particular topic, because it's like, do we really need another I Am Legend? Are people, has there been such a desire and a fervor for more I Am Legend? Because one of the things that
Not for me.
Netflix has done, I really appreciate how Netflix is like really taking a look at the analytics with a lot of the older TV shows, like
Yeah.
90s TV shows and early 2000s TV shows. And the really popular ones, they're like, you know what? Let's contact these people. Let's bring them back. Let's see if we can make like 1 or 2 seasons worth of some, pretty cool content, dive into the nostalgia factor or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think as a business model, I think that's pretty cool. If they do it right. I don't know about you, but I watched the first episode of Fuller House when they brought that back.
No, I never. I saw the trailers and that was enough. Like I grew up watching Full House. I grew up watching Family Matters, Step by Step. You name it. One of the Boy Meets World, all this stuff. Like I watched all this stuff. But go ahead with your point.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the first episode and that was it. I didn't. After I watched that, I was like, I don't really because since it was the first episode, that's when they brought back everybody. Everybody made a short cameo. Everybody said their catchphrases. But then after the first episode, supposedly, that's when like this new core family that was in all the episodes continued the story and had their own issues and drama to deal with and life lessons, etc. So, and I don't think it did two. I think maybe it was 2 seasons that it was on.
Yeah.
Before I decided to axe it. But yeah, it's so I appreciate the idea and the effort that Netflix went into it, trying to bring back some other stuff or things that were canceled or failed on another network. They tried to give it new life on Netflix. They've done that quite a few times.
Community.
Yes, Community.
Was it Community or was it that? Arrested Development. Arrested Development.
But they did. Yeah, Arrested Development for sure. I think
which didn't end well in my opinion. But
seasons or something.
Yeah,
it didn't. I didn't even see the last season of
Arrested Development. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the 4th season, the first one that was exclusively on Netflix. But I remember I watched it and I was like,
it was rough.
There's just because I know what made Arrested Development when it was on Fox so special was that just this genius way of intertwining all of these stories happening all at once, done in such a way where it was just mind-boggling but hilarious at the same time. And when I watched season 4, I was like, this is just too much going on. It's too convoluted. They're just trying to pack way too much story into it just because they could, or maybe they had a little bit more flexibility because it was Netflix and they gave them more creative freedom. I don't know, but it was way too convoluted, at least for me. Because the first 3 seasons on Fox were just so good. So good.
And I don't think it was just you. A lot of people felt that way, and they actually went back and they released another version of season 4, re-edited and kind of edited in the old-fashioned, or like the old way of the show, because so many people complained about how it was structured. And I was one of the people that watched it, and I was like, this isn't Arrested Development to me anymore. Like, this doesn't feel the same. And I wanted I would love for it to have just picked up from season 3. Here's what they're doing now, whatever, kind of the same, get a lot of the same people involved, and kind of make it the same in terms of just a continuation, but they had to kind of try to do something different. I applaud them for trying to do something different, but when that formula works already and that's what people are expecting, it kind of felt like a disservice to the fans of the show,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of like when you watch a certain movie series and then they get kind of like or even not even a series, but like a TV show, excuse me, and then they change directors, as TV shows often do. They normally, in a, like, let's say an 8-episode season, they might have 2, 3, 4 different directors. Each have their own style, but sometimes, especially in the past, they've had guest directors come in and they kind of don't get the tone of the show.
Yeah.
And it really kind of throws that it might be like a 1 or 2 episode arc for the characters, but those episodes really stand out as like, this doesn't fit in this other, like in this kind of puzzle that they have going on, right? And luckily that doesn't happen as much anymore. It's funny, my wife and I are going through Stargate SG-1. I have never seen it. We're on season 5.
Yeah.
Minus the CGI, obviously it being dated, which doesn't bother me because it's a show from like the late 90s, early 2000s. It's a great show. And, if there are fans watching, we just watched, we just watched the episode called Wormhole Extreme. So if you're familiar with the show, then that's the fake show within the show based on the show.
Oh, nice.
And so it was we were on the episode before that, and my wife realized the next episode was Wormhole Extreme. She said, we have to watch it. We have to. But we talk a lot as we're watching it, because I'm watching this word around loosely, remastered Blu-ray. Now, for those listening on a podcast, I'm giving finger quotes. It is like probably one of the worst looking transfers I've ever seen.
Oh no.
Originally, the first like 5 to 6 seasons of the show, I think, are 4:3. Were formatted for 4:3 for like standard def TVs. So they've cropped it in, so you lose information on the top and bottom, which doesn't bother me too much. But they didn't really do any remastering. They literally took whatever scans they had and just cranked the noise reduction up like to 150%, and it looks so bad in parts. Not just the CGI, but like just character skin tones, and when someone moves, there's kind of like a smearing that happens on the screen. What's crazy to me is like I normally will not tolerate anything like that. It's hard for me to watch. The show is so good to me and my wife that like we continue watching, because the show, like the storylines and the main actors come through so prominently that it's good. Some of the side actors, it's okay. We're talking about, again, late 90s. But there are talks, like Amazon has bought the rights to that. There are talks about doing another something Stargate with that, and I don't know if that was going to be good. Typically, when it's, I can't remember the last thing that was done. But yeah, I would be interested to see it, but yeah, I don't know.
Do you have the whole series on Blu-ray?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I ended up buying that on a lightning deal through Amazon. But we actually have all the DVDs, and occasionally I'll just pop in the DVDs just to see what they look like. And they have some really bad like interlacing artifacts. But you actually do get more of the frame because it's all 4:3 stuff until like season 6 or 7. I can't remember, maybe 8, where they kind of went. At some point, they stopped shooting on film and they went to HD cameras. I'm trying to remember when that is. So I'm expecting to see somewhat of a difference in quality going, especially at that time period. We're talking about like Phantom Menace time period, where they're shooting on HD cameras for that. So yeah, I'll be curious to see that.
What show looks surprisingly well from the 90s is X-Files.
Yes.
Because that was shot on film. But they must have shot it widescreen, because it doesn't look like blown up or anything. It's widescreen.
Yeah.
When you watch it on, my wife and I were going through it like a year ago on Hulu.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fine grain is still there, which is great. Very nostalgic. But yeah, it looked great.
Yeah. I
So
wonder if it
right.
like if they shot it with at the time to kind of have the foresight for, protecting for widescreen. So they may have shot it open matte, so you have that extra information for people with 4:3 TVs. But then if you're showing it on a widescreen, it's actually still framed correctly. It's kind of like
Yeah.
what they do currently for like things that are shot on like for IMAX cameras. They may shoot it in an IMAX ratio, but they're also protecting it for, if the whole movie's going to be like, 235, it's going to have big black bars on it. Then they're going to protect for that. So when they go to mat it, they don't have to do any like reframing in post.
Right.
And I don't think that Stargate did that because especially in the first like 2 or 3 seasons, there were so many moments where like actors' heads were slightly cut off, and it just. And again, this is honestly a lazily done remaster, if you'd even call it that. They didn't bother trying to reframe anything. It's even worse than like what Netflix did with Seinfeld, where they kind of remastered everything, but they just didn't bother reframing. So like
Right.
again, there's that whole like the whole episode that's of Seinfeld that's revolving around the manhole or whatever, and you can't even see the manhole throughout the whole episode.
Right.
Defeats the whole joke. Like it doesn't like. I mean, I get it. I've seen the show, but yeah. There's a couple comments here that I wanted to highlight. So Darth Jarrell, 1970 says Hollywood is beyond lazy now. They literally can't think of anything original, so they now depend on the nostalgia factor in order to make money. Also, the woke BS is ruining today's movies. Yeah, I mean, I can't really comment on the woke BS, I guess, because I don't want to get canceled. But I have my opinions on that stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't mean to hide it. Sorry. Yeah, it's just such a thing where like every time I see like, oh, like everyone's like excited about, Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. Mm-hmm. Looks okay. I like Deadpool. I'm not a superhero guy whatsoever. I've watched all the Marvel movies, even though I want to throw up now when I watch most of them. Because they're just all like just copy and pasted plot, from the previous one. It's like, hey, we got this guy. This guy's the villain now, but now we're, but they keep selling, man. They keep like, that's why DC is like, they're really trying to pump out these superhero movies. They're like trying to get them better, because there's a lot of money in it. But yeah, they do tend to depend on the nostalgia factor in order to make money. Mm-hmm. And I can give you an example of that. I love the original Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Like it's one of my all-time favorite comedies, from the 90s. It still holds up to this day. It's so funny. And the great thing is, like the thing I always talk about, the first movie, and we're disregarding like the prequel they made, the Dumber and Dumber one that came out about them in high school. But yeah, the first Dumb and Dumber, they were just two guys that didn't know they were stupid. They didn't know they were dumb. And they played it straight. And then you watch the sequel that came out like 20, 25 years later. And they both know that they're goofy and stupid. And they really lean into that. And it ruins the whole vibe of the movie.
Yeah.
And so they literally like lost me because it was so hokey and weird and just stupid. And I also feel the same way about like modern sitcoms for the most part. And I'm talking actual like in front of a live studio on it, like the ones with laugh tracks, like Big Bang Theory and things like that. If you go back and watch some of the sitcoms from the 90s, even the ones that you don't like, a lot of people don't like Friends. I can understand that. A lot of people don't like Seinfeld or Full House. Or the thing is, though, like watch those and then watch the current stuff, and it's so there's a definitely a difference in terms of what you're seeing now versus what you're seeing then. I'm not even talking about technology, just the way things are portrayed in the show and the way things are like addressed in the show, the way people talk and what, like, it's all very different now than it was then. Like, I mean, I always look at Home Improvement from the 90s, you know.
Yeah.
That's, if you watch that, like, even now, to me, there, yeah, it can be cheesy, but show me an episode of The Big Bang Theory that doesn't make you want to cringe with some of the dialogue they've chosen, especially the later seasons. First 2 or 3 seasons of the Big Bang Theory were different, but yeah, it's like they're like, they got super popular. They didn't really know what to do, and so they just, kept writing. And I'm not like shitting on the Big Bang Theory for the very reason of, like, I don't like it. I think it's, at some point it just kind of jumped the shark big time, and it kind of lost like the original intention of the show, or the original kind of vibe of the show. And yeah, but we do have this tendency, Hollywood does, right, of just repeating history. And as much as I love Ghostbusters, I didn't see this last one, the Frozen Empire. I haven't seen it yet. I enjoyed Afterlife, but call me crazy, I still think Ghostbusters 2 is a better movie. I will watch Ghostbusters 2 100 times before I watch Afterlife again. And I enjoyed Afterlife. But there's something about Ghostbusters 1 and 2, even though 2 is not as good as its successor. I still, or the predecessor, I still enjoy Ghostbusters 2 more than like Afterlife. Yeah, well, there was one other comment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
One other comment here. Yeah. Here's like, hey boys, Star Wars Episode 4 4K disc on the 7.2.4 should be a blast. I'm curious because I know this is streaming, but the Disney Plus version of that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Especially with its fake HDR. I don't think there's not much information that goes above like 300 nits, 400 nits or something. So they didn't really, yeah. I'd like to see a version of Star Wars with all the grain still intact instead of it being like super. They've done a great job, don't get me wrong. But anyway.
Yeah, man. Because that's the thing that's what's bothering me nowadays is back in the day, you had these two stages. You had broadcast television and you had cinema. And, cinema was where like true art happened. People with artistic visions, people with stories they wanted to tell within, 90 minutes to a couple hours, whatever. And budgets that could allow for that vision to come to life. But then you had broadcast TV happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But the thing about broadcast TV is that you've got these time slots to fill. Like you've got a half an hour here, you've got an hour here. So it's these executives and these producers who are trying to fill a time slot. That is like their number one goal. Yes, I mean you've got some amazing people back in the day that are creating these really good shows and very engaging, and there's audiences who just love the shows, like MASH or something was super popular, but also there just wasn't a lot of stuff to watch back then. So, not that many channels either. So people were forced to watch what was on or go to the movie theater. That was really your only way of getting entertainment in, screen form. But now that line doesn't exist anymore. TV and cinema are now one. And because of that, it's got that same mentality. Instead of artists, directors, cinematographers, writers, whatever, instead of artists doing something, coming up with an original idea for the art, all these streaming platforms are just trying to make content to fill that void and fill that time slot, you could say, even though people can watch it on demand and whenever they want.
Yeah.
So instead of doing it for the art, they're literally doing it for the time slot and for just so people can have something to watch, which is totally messing up with the art.
Yeah.
It's all about, I mean, sure, producers in Hollywood have always been just about the money, and you know, there are good and bad producers and good and bad directors and whatever.
Yeah.
But man, it's just really sad how, I mean, take Disney for example. Disney just keeps buying up certain intellectual property, but when they do, since they have to spend so much money on it, their focus right out the gate is, ooh, all right, well,
Yeah.
we got to put content out there so we can recoup our losses from buying Lucasfilm for $4 billion. So just having that intention from the start just kind of ruined everything, because originally it was George Lucas who was just some kind of nerdy guy who was into astronomy, who had this idea about a space opera. He wanted to make it for kids and kind of got inspiration from Flash Gordon, etc., and those old serials back then. And he went with it, and it became just this phenomenon.
Yeah.
So instead of one person's vision and artistic intention, it's become this trillion-dollar company. Or is it a $1 trillion? I know Apple's $1 trillion, but Disney is a multi-billion-dollar company. And their whole goal was just like, yo, we need to buy Lucasfilm because I don't think George Lucas is going to do anything with Star Wars anymore. So let's snatch that up and let's just go for it and just make a bunch of Star Wars stuff, because so many fans are out there. And then those fans are going to have kids who are going to be Star Wars fans. So let's just put a bunch of content out there. And that's just not, not the way you need to go about doing things.
Let's steamroll them with Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just almost, there does come a point where it's just too much, right? Like it's like Marvel stuff. It's just too, like, we don't need a movie every year. We don't need the movie every year and then a show in between. Like, we could space this out and like, let us, like, and I know that there are people that will disagree with me there. I have, like relatives and stuff that we talk about this all the time. They're like, oh no, like I can't get enough of the stuff. We're at a point where they're telling the stories of these characters and everything. And for them, growing up with the comics and everything, that's like finally seeing their dreams and imagination come to life. I can understand that. But as like just a general like movie watcher, I don't want to say general movie watcher because I'm like a film nerd. There is like just a kind of, there does come a point where it's like oversaturation of a certain product, right? Because at the end of the day, these movies, these IPs are products. Star Wars is a product. Star Trek is a product. Notice I said Trek and not track, as so many people say. Star Trek. You know, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, all of these things are products at the end of the day. And it's like, you know, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And the problem really, I think, lies in that all like the things that are successful, they're just like, well, let's just do that again. So like, why are we gonna kind of roll the dice on this thing and risk losing money on something when we know that, like, you know, Captain America is gonna put, you know, people in the seats? Why are we gonna like spend money on a movie from a director that no one's ever heard from? Yeah, you know. And so there's a, you know, you talk about directors earlier. There, you know, a few years ago, you know, Martin Scorsese kind of said the thing. And I think we covered this briefly when we talked about it. But like he was basically saying that like the Marvel movies are more like theme park rides. And I would tend to agree with them, you know. And I think what a lot of people took issue with was like he was like saying like they're like they're not cinema, they're not, I mean, they're that's kind of a hard like topic to really break down, but I think it kind of does go hand in hand with what you're talking about. Is I remember back in the even like the early 2000s, prior to like Iron Man kind of blowing up and coming out, you could go to the movies and see an indie film, even
Yeah.
even a film that maybe costs $1 million to make, 500,000, so these are like low budget by all like the standards. 500 grand is a lot of money to me and you, but like to a studio, that's kind of nothing, right? That's kind of a drop in the bucket when you look at like some of these movies costing 500 $600 million to make. So like, but you could go see that in the theater, and I think Scorsese's point there was that the bigger tentpole releases, the Marvel movies, the Star Wars movies, all that stuff, the more stuff like that gets made and it's like the dominant focus, the other little guys get pushed out. You get a lot more like direct to streaming, or as it used to be called, direct to video. You can go and buy the DVD or Blu-ray. It never hit the theater. And some of these movies are they are like art house films, and there are things that kind of like push the boundaries of like what an indie film can do as technology like progresses and stuff. Heck, I mean, one of my favorite horror movies, is that a horror movie, psychological thriller? It's a movie called Session 9.
Yeah.
It was made completely, I think, on DV cameras.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not to be confused with like 28 Days Later. That like it was kind of like a high, maybe it was like HD. But it's got, why can't I think of his name? David Caruso from yeah. If you guys have never seen it, I don't even think it has a Blu-ray release. You can only get it on like DVD. You might be able to find like an HD rip somewhere. Not saying I support that or anything, but if you can,
Sure.
it's a great film. There's another film called Primer. That
Oh, yeah,
came
about
out.
back in time, or
Yep,
time
yep,
travel, right?
yep. And I think that their budget on that was like $5,000 or $8,000.
Right.
Like literally, they shot on film and they used, I think, everything but like maybe 30 or 40 frames of film. Like they didn't shoot, they didn't have any bloopers, like anything like that. They knew what they wanted. So, yeah, but like you don't hear a lot of stuff about that nowadays. But I think to kind of play devil's advocate to what you're talking about is the cinema that we used to know, I don't know if that even exists anymore, or that maybe we want it to exist, but it's just never going to, because back in the early 2000s, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Netflix online streaming. We didn't have all of these outlets for people. Like I can make a movie. You and I can make a movie. We may be able to find funding and just release it on YouTube.
Yeah.
We don't need we don't need someone promoting this. I mean, we can hire someone to do it, but like we no longer need, a theater to present our movie, and yeah, see again, it's like, this is that we could go on for like 4 hours talking about this stuff, but it's like, there is something to seeing a movie on a big screen. And I know like being in home theater and stuff, we typically have bigger screens than probably most people. And I've never watched a movie on my phone. I don't want to, like, I don't, unless like I've watched them on an iPad when I'm like in a hotel, like not at home, I'm traveling or something. I'll watch like a TV show or something, but like I typically will like not watch a movie. But a lot of people watch on their phones, and you definitely get a different experience. It's not the same thing when you do that. But if someone has a big screen, you could even like sell the movie on a website. Like you could say, hey, here's the 60 gigabyte file that we've hosted that you can pay for. And, yeah, it's not through Kaleidoscape, but it's through our own thing. You just need a way to play it,
Yeah.
in Dolby Atmos. But yeah, I think that it's kind of interesting, and I do wonder about because everything these days seems to be like a remake and a reboot and a retelling,
Yeah.
or it's like I haven't seen Wonka. I didn't like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory very much, even though technically it was truer to the source, the
The
book.
Johnny Depp one.
Yeah, it was truer to the actual book. But
Right.
Willy Wonka, I grew up with. So there's like you're not like can't replace that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I see Beetlejuice too, and I'm like, I love Beetlejuice, the first one.
I know.
That and
I
Edward
love Michael Keaton
Scissorhands.
too.
Yeah, that and Edward Scissorhands probably like my top two Tim Burton movies, right next to Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to me, it's just like you're never going to be able to capture that lightning in a bottle again. So,
Mhm.
even if you bring it out half-assed, like it's going to show through big time to someone like me, and to maybe a lot of fans out there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you guys are trying too hard now. Like we just wanted you to continue what the original was. Like,
Yeah.
we want an interesting story or something. So, I feel like I'm getting like too. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. What year is it?
Yeah, I think here's an interesting comment that came up I want to address. Talking again about indie movies in the theaters. Those indie movies made up. This is from Gary Pye. Those indie movies made up for it on the back end with DVD releases. Streaming crushed that revenue stream.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it was inevitable that
Oh.
physical media was going to come up during this discussion, because yeah, I mean, I remember seeing a clip of Matt Damon talking when he was on Hot Wings or Hot Ones.
Hot Ones. Yeah.
Yeah, Hot Ones, discussing how, yeah, I mean, the back end DVD or just home video revenue made was so necessary back in the day, because that could actually make a film eventually successful. There are so many films that became cult classics once they were on home video that didn't do very well at the box office because they were original stories, because they weren't part of a franchise, and not a lot of people were able to see it in the theater for whatever reason, or maybe they just weren't that interested, or maybe there just wasn't enough buzz around it, word of mouth. But then once people started seeing it at home or going to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video and renting it, then more buzz started perpetuating. And I mean, yeah, like that was just part of the economic structure and business plan, really, is that, yeah, maybe it doesn't do so well in the box office, but we still have the chance of the DVD sales at least helping us. If it was a flop in the theaters, maybe it can at least get us even with the DVD sales.
Yeah.
So that has just been completely wiped out. And
Yeah.
that's why smaller budget indie movies aren't getting greenlit anymore or given a chance, because after it's in the theater, well, if it didn't do very well, then screw it. It's not going to do very well streaming either. Because
Yeah.
it's not going to make its revenue back.
Which is if people are wondering, that's typically why you get like if a movie bombed, it's so weird, right? I've noticed like this trend, where if a movie bombed and then it goes to like 4K Blu-ray right away. And maybe I'm just like looking too far into this. Have you guys noticed that those movies that bombed are typically more expensive than the movies that didn't bomb when you go to buy the 4K Blu-ray, because they're trying to like make that money back. Now, again, it depends where you shop, Don't like good luck buying movies at like Walmart and Target anymore, because they're like on their way out there. Which makes me sad to see. I really hope that we just eventually just one day it's like physical media is completely dead. It's like great. But I just it's this weird thing. It's like my wife and I, speaking of awful movies, my wife and I watched Argyle just last
Oh,
week.
that Ben Affleck one? No, that's right.
No,
That
you're
one that
thinking
just
Henry
came out.
Cavill. Yeah, it kind of has a Ben Affleck kind of hairdo.
What am I thinking of? Argo. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, not Argo. Yeah, not Argo.
Totally different.
Argyle. Argyle is the latest from Matthew Vaughn, who did the Kingsman series of movies. He did
That's
X-Men
right.
First Class, Kick-Ass. One of my favorite kind of let's call it British mobster movies called Layer Cake with
Oh yeah.
Daniel Craig. But Argyle was absolutely dreadful. It was an
Oh
awful
no.
movie. It was so hard to sit through. Part of that had to probably do with Bryce Dallas Howard.
Mm,
I just don't think she's a good fit for that role.
yeah.
But that completely bombed at the box office. It and so like it came out really quickly. And he kind of not going to spoil too much, but like I think he was hoping to do a sequel
Mm,
and kind of connect it with his other like the Kingsman movies, and it just never. I don't think it's gonna pan out.
yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, here's an established director that has directed a string of successful movies, right? I actually was probably one of the few that enjoyed X-Men First Class, I guess. I don't know.
That's yeah. That
I'm
was
not
a
a
good one.
again, I'm not a superhero dude. But I liked the first Kingsman movie, enjoyed the second. The third was just kind of like, okay. Kind of gets a little tired after a while. But yeah, it was like this movie, it kind of does play hand in hand with what we're talking about. It's like this was an original like IP. I think it was based off of a book,
Mm,
if I'm not mistaken. Um, but it was based off of, so if it was based off of a book, it's an original movie, original story. When it's not executed well and it bombs, then that's even less like a studio may look at that. It's like, well, why are we gonna again invest in an original IP when it just doesn't do well? Even from an established director, he's not a Christopher Nolan, that's like makes a movie every 7 years or 5 years or whatever, and it's always this massive thing. Even if the movie's kind of not understood, or maybe if it's not great, because he's made some movies that have been, kind of people have been mixed on if it was good or not.
yeah.
They're massive, right? They're huge. So his name alone was gonna. If you put Christopher Nolan's name on a movie, then it's gonna sell, right? Like people are gonna go see it because it's him. His track record, his even if you don't like his movies, fairly untarnished. Some people not so lucky, like Matthew Vaughn,
I
and I
know.
feel bad because I've always enjoyed his films. Let's see. Kevin asks, actually, I want to highlight this. Gary Pye says that Umbrella Entertainment has a pre-order of a gorgeous box set for Primer coming out. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Oh,
I did Google it. It looks like it comes out on the 22nd of May. Just just the Blu-ray, not a 4K or anything. Which I mean, I think the film was shot on 16 millimeter for $7,000. That's how much it.
wow. Nice.
Yeah. They call it a lo-fi monument to indie filmmaking. Yeah, there's some really cool like. I'd be curious to see that again. I haven't seen it in years. Same with
Yeah.
Session 9. Although I did watch Session 9 more recently with my wife, and she really enjoyed it. Definitely a great film. But yeah, we just don't see movies like that anymore.
No.
And if
Yeah,
we
I mean,
do,
like you were
they're on
saying,
YouTube.
it's you've got your major tentpole movies in the theater, but back in the day, you would also have maybe 1 to 3 indie movies playing at the same time. Small theatrical releases or whatever. That was just a given back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but all you see nowadays is just it's either your tentpole ones or like stuff that's kind of regional.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when I go to the theater and see the previews beforehand, I'll see like some like religious centered film that was produced like somewhere kind of near where I live. So I'm like, oh, I guess that pans out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that's really the only indie films you're going to find in a theater nowadays is just more regional based stuff where they don't want to, output it to a bunch of theaters, maybe like 5 theaters.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
all you can afford, but that's all you get nowadays.
It's strange. Yeah. It's, my wife and I have not been to the theater. We were going to go see, I think we had planned to go see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, but I think the next one we might see is she's really excited about the Deadpool and Wolverine movie because she
Me
loves
too.
Deadpool. Like,
I love that franchise just because the character Deadpool is incredible. Ryan Reynolds is literally made for that role. And what I like about it is the fact that that character himself is very meta and makes fun of comic books and movies, so it is a major tentpole movie, but I love how he makes light of the whole cinematic universe and,
yeah, yeah,
looks at, breaks the fourth wall and stuff. I can't get enough of stuff like that if it's done very well. And I read a blurb from the director of Deadpool and Wolverine saying there's a reason that it's not called Deadpool 3 because it is very much a Deadpool and Wolverine story.
yeah,
Very centered around those two characters.
yeah,
And looking from the latest trailer that just dropped earlier this week, or I think it was yesterday, yeah, I mean, it looks like there's so much conflict between the two characters, and they just got to figure shit out.
yeah.
And, I love both of them, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. So I am really looking forward to that dynamic. And yeah, again, just because of the whole meta part of it,
I think
I love that kind of humor.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps when it's poking fun at an industry you're so tired of anyway. Like
Yeah.
the whole, like, Marvel machine
Mhm.
to have kind of like something set kind of in that universe, but
Mhm.
also like poking fun at it and like, kind of saying, an FU to, the execs in the studios that are even making it,
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like my wife and I watched the trailer today because she's like, "Have you seen the trailer?" And I was like, "No." I brought up like the first trailer, like I Googled it or like YouTubed it,
Mhm.
and I was like, the first trailer that popped up was like Entertainment Tonight, so we started watching it, and it was like, bleep bleep. I was like, fuck this. Like I need to go. Like I need to find the Red Band trailer. There has to be
Right.
one, and thankfully, like the next one that we found was uncensored. I hate the censoring of language. It's such a weird thing that like I always go back to like the whole thing's like in America we could show people's on TV we could show people's head get blown off with a bullet, but man, you say the word ass and suddenly that's really
I
bad.
know.
It's like it's just language. Come on, like so
Yeah.
like but we watched it. I was like, oh, okay, like yeah, I've followed these movies. Deadpool, out of all the Marvel movies, has kind of been my saving grace.
Yeah.
Um,
The
especially
outlier, so to speak.
yeah, and they're not. The thing is, what I love about the Deadpool movies is they're not trying to be something that appeals to everyone.
Yeah.
They're trying to be something that appeals to Deadpool fans. That's the important thing. Like whereas like Captain America, it's like they want to appeal to a broad audience, right? Iron Man, I was gonna say Tony Stark, same person.
Yeah.
Spoilers if you don't know. Hulk, Bruce Banner, same guy too.
What?
So yeah. But there was another one in there that I was gonna throw, but it's too obscure. People wouldn't get it. But yeah, I was like, okay, this is like the first. I remember seeing the first Deadpool and going, this might be a little too on the nose. Like they might, even after the scene that kind of like leaked, so to speak, like they say it's
Right.
leaked, the leaked kind of preview of the whole thing, that whole like chase scene, fight scene, whatever. I was like hesitant, but yeah, it delivered. The
Yeah.
second one, even more so. I even like what is it, like the one with they did like a PG-13 version with Fred Savage.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
That
never
was
saw
pretty
that
funny.
one,
That
but
was pretty funny. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with this one. I was kind of happy when Logan came out, because Logan was also kind of opposite of what you
Yeah.
expect everything from that franchise to do. And it was very, very. It was. I think I remember reading it initially was rated NC-17, and they had to kind of pull back some of the stuff in the movie
Oh wow.
to get it to R.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like they're not holding anything back, and I loved that, because I'm like, this is Wolverine. This is what like
Mhm.
Logan should be. Um, and so then Deadpool kind of came along, and I think it was like Deadpool came out before Logan, and then the Deadpool 2 came out after Logan.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, okay, these are the types of like, personally for me, I'm so sick of and tired of like this traditional Marvel stuff.
Mhm.
I want to see more of this. Like I want to see more like the dark, gritty um stuff. And if I know this is gonna sound crazy, if any of you out there have the 4K Blu-ray of Logan and you've never watched the black and white version,
Mm.
give it because it's on the second disc. They included a whole other disc with that.
Right.
It's worth a watch if you're really a fan of the movie. It kind of changes the vibe of the movie, kind of
Yeah.
makes it more of a noir thing. And yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it in black and white. It's weird. Yeah, some people are going to be like, I only watch stuff in color. It's like I watch anything. Like I don't care. Give me black and white. Give me the Aviator with all those the opening where they were going through the years replicating the film stock from that time period.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that movie, The Aviator, from Martin Scorsese?
Um. Yeah, with Leo DiCaprio, right?
Yeah. That's Howard Hughes.
Right. A long
Yeah.
time ago though. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
If you watch it now, I remember there were many people complaining when the DVD came out on like forums that it looked wrong. Like there was something wrong with the colors because they never got past the first bit, and
Oh,
like they were literally
right.
replicating the film stock from that time period.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, 2 perf or Technicolor or something. And so, the greens would be very like pastel almost.
Mhm.
I just remember there was like peas on a plate that it just looked, yeah. Anyway, um, it's a great movie, even if it's, kind of, I like how Martin Scorsese will do like mob films and then like historic, like drama pieces about like a
Right.
certain somebody, and then he'll go back to being like, I'm going to do The Irishman and
Right.
make
Yeah.
3 hours of a young Robert De Niro that kind of doesn't look like a young Robert De Niro. But anyway, um,
Yeah. Speaking of Marvel, yeah, I mean it's like what what I think coincidentally happened was that the Marvel franchise and streaming kind of grew up together,
yeah.
in parallel with with one another. But also COVID kind of, I mean, it was, I don't know just if it was fate or whatever, but it was incredibly lucky that Avengers Endgame came out before COVID because that would have screwed everything up. Um, because from Iron Man to Avengers Endgame, obviously there were some misses. There were a couple misses in there, but for the most part, yeah, man, this was something totally new. Nothing like this had ever been done before, where everything is interconnected and interweaving into each other, and you got the several end credit scenes, just kind of
Yeah.
telling you about what might happen or
Yeah.
other things that are intertwined. So the idea was great, and the execution, especially with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, was awesome. Just to have that, especially that final battle with Thanos in Endgame, having all those characters show up through the portals. You know, if you were a Marvel fan or just a comic book fan in general, and you saw it in the theater, I mean, it was emotional
Yeah.
seeing that many characters
Oh, it's
on the
crazy. Yeah.
screen simultaneously. Um, just the fact that they pulled it off, that was a monumental achievement in cinema history
Yeah.
by far. But they just got a little too greedy.
Mhm.
The fact that they're like, all right, let's keep doing this. Let's
Phase
keep
3 or
riding
whatever.
this train.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the phases and stuff. It's like, no, man. You should have started with Iron Man, ended with Avengers Endgame, and then just took a break. Took a several year break to just maybe, well, to give us, give the audience a break as well. Because as soon as, I mean, it just took the wind out of everyone's sails, kind of in a good way, because the story arc had resolved. Thanos was defeated. Sorry, spoiler, if you haven't seen
What?
it. And, you know, it was the end. The story arc ended.
Yeah.
So the fact that Disney tried to just continue by introducing these other characters and, oh, here's this other story arc that we're trying to start. Isn't
Yeah.
that cool? Isn't that interesting? And no,
No.
it was not interesting because nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, man, they just got a little too greedy. They
Do you,
should have ended with Avengers Endgame, took a break, and maybe tried to come up with another large story arc that maybe took 5 years or so to tell.
yeah.
Because I think Avengers Endgame was a total of, I think, 10 years or something when they first started.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, people need breaks.
They do. You know what I always appreciated about like the Netflix Marvel shows, and not all of them, but
Ooh,
mainly
yeah.
like Daredevil and Punisher, is they were disconnected from that universe pretty
Yes.
much. I like that because it allowed them. Well, one, it allowed like Daredevil and Punisher to just be fucking brutal
Yeah.
instead of just kind of this kind of PG, like it's not even hard PG-13, right? It's like barely on the cusp of like, in my opinion, being PG. Like it's kind of like they find that line and it's like, okay, how can we throw this punch and how can we do that to make it, you know, it's like they're very careful to make this so like it's kind of not ever going to be like a hard PG-13.
Yeah.
But like I remember watching Daredevil, again, not a massive Daredevil fan. I'd seen the Ben Affleck movie, which I mean is critically panned. I didn't like
Right?
it. I actually used to use the scene where he lost his vision in that movie as like a home theater demo because it was always cool
really?
how the forklift like went into the barrel of I can't even remember what it was like. That wasn't acid because his face would be all disfigured. It was something. He lost his anyway. And his dad was played by the guy who played the cowboy in Indian in the Cupboard. Anyway, I'm getting like too, but yeah, I watched it. I was like, oh my god, this show is like the fight scenes, the choreography, everything. I remember watching that, and at that time there wasn't really any shows, to my memory at the time, that were really doing that to that extent. I mean, yeah, there was like Game of Thrones and stuff. I think was probably still out and stuff, but that was like on HBO. This was like a Netflix show. We hadn't really gotten anything like that. And then the Punisher was like introduced through Daredevil, and then he got
Okay.
his own spinoff, and they were just, again, I'd seen the Punisher movie with Thomas Jane. It was actually filmed in like Tampa, where I used
Oh,
to
cool.
live.
Yeah.
So like, at the end of the movie, spoiler, he's standing on top of the Skyway Bridge. I used to go over that bridge pretty much every day when I went to college. So it was like, I was always like, oh man, I would love to stand on top of this without getting arrested, like, 'cause if you stop on the, yeah, you're normally have a lot of jumpers and stuff from there.
Right.
But I had seen that. I was like, oh, whatever. But then like the show was just like, man, this like John Bernthal is Frank was such a like, I mean, he just was that character. Um, but like we
Honestly,
again, go ahead. Sorry.
Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
Yes. I mean, and he
One
made
of the best villains in the Marvel franchise by
but
far.
every like, and the thing was, is like, yeah, there were a few times where it was, maybe they were taking some liberties and things weren't quite believable, but they did for the most part. I feel like those shows kind of took that kind of Christopher Nolan gritty Batman thing and applied it to this.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have we didn't have flying people. We didn't have, you know what I mean? Like we didn't have all these like superhuman people. It was set in like a real dark, gritty city. I'm not saying like it's super realistic or anything. It's still stylized to fit that genre. But like Vincent D'Onofrio was about as believable as Kingpin could be. Same
Just
with
a complicated character, and
yeah,
he pulled it off so well.
yeah, and like what I loved about it too was like the Punisher was not impervious. Like he got hurt.
Yeah.
Daredevil. It's been so long I can't remember his name, but it's not Ben Affleck. It's something else. I think his
character name.
His character's name.
Matt Murdock.
Yes, thank you. Again, he got hurt in the show. Like I think wasn't there a time like where he almost died or something?
Yeah.
Like they're definitely not. And so like it was still all grounded kind of in reality, even if it was loosely. And we don't really see a lot of that anymore. A lot. I mean, if we look at all the Marvel shows like that Disney has produced, I mean, I don't really need to tell anyone that's seen them that they're very light.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that was one of the biggest complaints of a lot of fans, is that the villains in every Marvel movie were just like,
yeah, yeah,
or that, or just because. I mean, I did enjoy the humor that they brought to it, the levity at some point, but at the same time, it kind of made it seem like, the enemy is not that big a deal, because we're making light of the situation and we're throwing jokes back and forth while this drama is happening. And clearly, because of their attitudes, obviously they're not going to die. Because it doesn't seem like the stakes are very high.
Right.
So I get that.
Yeah.
But like you said, they're theme park rides.
Yeah. But my question to you is, and even to people watching, is if you're a fan of the Marvel shows or the Marvel movies and the shows, and Elon, you can answer this, but again, if people in the that are watching this live want to kind of chime in too and let us know your opinion. When they launched the Marvel shows, there was this whole kind of thing where they were connecting it to the movies. It was like you watch this movie and then you watch the show, and that was kind of like the connection between that movie and the show. So things that happened in the show were then maybe talked about in the next movie. Right. Now, I kind of bought into that at first. I was watching the shows, but as the shows kind of got progressively more and more, in my opinion, dumb. That's my opinion. I lost interest in the shows and I stopped watching them, but I felt like they were kind of addressing things in the next movie that I completely missed because I didn't watch the show. And the latest thing was like my wife and I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which we did enjoy, but we had never watched the Christmas special that they came out with, and they made references to things in the Christmas special that I didn't even get because I was like, that's just a weird joke,
Right.
It's because I didn't watch the Christmas special. So like, do you feel like you missed out or you're missing out on something if you don't watch the show? It's almost like they're like I don't want to say
they're
forcing
expecting.
you. Yes, right.
It's like, oh, well, obviously you watched the Christmas special. Obviously you watched the show on Disney
Yeah,
Plus. It's like, maybe not.
yeah. I think the last show I watched was WandaVision.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, I'm out. Like I just again, I applaud them for trying to do something different with WandaVision, but it just didn't really work.
Yeah.
Um, and then the whole She-Hulk
I never saw that one. Yeah.
controversy.
Actually,
If you're
I think WandaVision was the last one I watched too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you wanted to like it because as a film nerd, they kind of went through like these like old TV periods, right? These TV show periods. And I remember watching the like behind the scenes after. I'm like, wow, they put so much like love and care into replicating this stuff.
Yeah.
Like they use actual lights from like that time period
Yeah.
and everything to kind of replicate that. But then the show just kind of was like went to shit like really fast. It was just I think it was too weird for most people. Like,
Yeah.
and then it was also just kind of like wasn't really interesting.
Yeah.
It just didn't
It
really
was all right.
yeah, it didn't really grab me. Like I wasn't like, oh, what's really going on? Um,
Yeah. I'm gonna be right back.
yeah, have no idea what I'm going to talk about, but we'll figure something out.
Comments.
Comments? What? There are comments? No. Yeah. So we have actually a few. Like Justin posted. I have said for a while now. I really miss the 10 to 20 million mid-budget movies. Those are what I've been diving into lately. Sucks. We probably won't see lower budget films in theaters anymore. 100% agree, Justin. It really. I remember watching. I think it was called. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it had Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. I think it was called The Lighthouse. I remember seeing that in the theater by myself, and when I say by myself, I was the only person in the theater on a Friday night, and like it was like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Nobody was seeing this movie. It was weird, but I liked that weirdness. And it was just I was like, I don't think anybody's gonna see this. Like it sucks, but like that people aren't seeing this. But I thought it was like, people don't see movies like this in the theater anymore. It's ridiculous. And Elon, since you just came back, I was talking about that movie, The Lighthouse, with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. I saw it on a Friday night at like 7:00, 7:30. And I saw it by myself. Like literally, I was the only person in the theater, in the theater room.
Wow.
I saw it at home. No, I saw it in the theater. Mostly always by myself in my own theater room. But yeah, I was like, the movie is weird. I kind of enjoyed it because it was weird. But I was like, no one's gonna see this movie. It's too weird,
No, but he also had a. Did you also bring up his other point about A24?
Yeah, it was that him?
I got it right here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
that was a
Gary
different
said,
guy. That was a different guy. Elon,
Oh,
pay
okay.
attention. That was Justin. This is Gary.
Sorry,
They sound nothing alike. I'm kidding. I'm just giving
Gary
you
and
crap.
Justin. Well, yeah, Gary Pye mentioned that A24 has done a great job of picking up
Yeah.
the low budget stuff, which is so true. I mean, in this era where only tentpole huge budget movies are making it to the theaters, A24 is, as far as I know, the only studio that seems to be investing in original, one-off, well done, just in very unique
Yeah.
films. And it really films, not popcorn movies, not roller coaster rides,
Yeah.
films where the art is behind the intent. The other day, my wife and I watched, what's that one? It's that World War II one that just came out recently. It got some Oscar buzz. I think it actually won for best foreign film or something.
All Quiet on the Western Front? No?
No, Um, oh gosh, why am I having this brain fart now? Of course.
It's always when you're like signing off, you're like, it was this.
But yeah, anyway, the premise is, and I mean, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but the premise is it follows one of the like head guys of Auschwitz. The zone of interest, that's what it's called. Zone of interest. This is based on a true story, like the actual person who is in charge of Auschwitz, or at least during this film, was an actual person, and he was later tried for his atrocities later,
Yeah.
after the war was over. But man, it is a film like this. I am so surprised even saw the light of day in this modern era, because nothing about it was flashy. Nothing
Yeah.
about it was like, oh my gosh, you have to see this movie because this actor is in it or because it follows such and such story. No, it's literally all about the subtext. The entire movie is just this family that's living in this little house just outside of the wall of Auschwitz, because you can see it in certain shots. You can actually see some of the stuff on the other side, barbed wire, whatever. And they're just having an ordinary life. But that's the point, is
Yeah.
that these people just outside of Auschwitz were living what seemingly an ordinary life, even though these horrendous things were happening just on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
So it's just got this eerie vibe the entire time. Just the conversations they're having, like, oh my gosh, because the mother-in-law comes over and the daughter-in-law is showing her around the house, giving her a tour of the backyard. They have a pool with a slide. There's this nice garden that they have, very nice flowers and plants and food that they can pick. And she's just going over all the stuff in their garden. Oh, it's so beautiful, this and that. But in your mind, you're thinking, how dare you? Like, just go on with your lives as if nothing is happening a
Yeah.
couple hundred yards away.
Yeah.
And another, I mean, I'll try and frame this without spoiling too much, but there is this heartbreaking scene because, again, it's just a completely ordinary scene otherwise, where some engineers come and talk to this head of Auschwitz, and they're like, hey, look at this new way, this engineered, more efficient way we have created that's shaped in an oval to cremate these bodies. You can start from here in this chamber and go in succession around this oval. So by the time you have gone completely around full circle, the first chamber you started is now cool enough to bring up the temperature again so it's ready to go. The efficiency is just
Wow.
top notch. And they're literally having this conversation as if you and I are talking about specs on a TV or specs
Wow.
on an AVR. It is so mind-boggling that they were just having this normal conversation. Like, we're talking about killing people, and
Yeah.
yet they were having this just such casualness about it. It's the craziest vibe I have ever felt watching a movie in a long time.
Yeah.
So like, just stuff like that. It's like, and it's completely in German. It's subtitled.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be a dubbed version out there, but me, I always loved to watch it in the original version. So
Yeah.
of course I watched it in German with English subtitles. But like, it's so cool that A24 is taking those risks. They're literally the only studio right now that is banking on these risks because they just, I don't know, whoever is running A24 knows how to get things done and just really has a knack for picking directors and picking stories that will be engaging
Yeah.
and that need to be told. And they're just basically giving a middle finger to the rest of Hollywood, being like, we can still make a profit off of one-off original stories. So
Yeah.
fuck you for not trying.
Yeah.
So,
It won Best International Feature and Best Sound at the Oscars.
yes. Ooh,
Um,
let's talk about that.
yes. You do that. I'm gonna go use the restroom real quick. I'll be back.
Okay. The sound design, it makes sense that they got the Oscar for best sound design because oh my goodness. Again, it's all about the subtext. Because you're watching these people just do ordinary things. Someone got like a new canoe and they're gushing over this new canoe and they're like, oh, like the kids are like, can I get in it, daddy? And stuff like that. This is all happening outside, of course, in their little backyard. But in the background, you're hearing the occasional pop, pop of gunfire. You're hearing the occasional wailing and screaming of people. I kid you not, it seemed like the entire movie, there is just this steady, very quiet, but this steady drone, just this boom, 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 the entire time. Because it's all the stuff that's going on in Auschwitz. It just seems like that place never sleeps. Stuff is always happening. They're always making him work. It's just tragic. But the sound design is just so spot on and well thought out to where it is the most subtle thing ever, but it really gets the point across and it really sells the moment because you're hearing these ordinary conversations happening while this, tragic stuff is happening just over the fence. And it's just all in the subtext. And I appreciated how subtle they went instead of like just being blatant about it and showing stuff, head on or like right in your face. No, nothing
Yeah.
about it was in your face. Everything was about subtext. So it's not a movie for everyone, I'll tell you that. But yeah, because it just really sets the tone, like right off the bat, like what you're getting into. So if you're into that kind of thing, if you're into something just very original and off the beaten path and interesting and has very, the subtext like that, I would highly
Yeah.
recommend.
I'm gonna have to check it out because I haven't seen like I haven't watched a bunch of movies recently just because of the theater. Like, so I'm really behind on like seeing I've never even seen Dune, the first part 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think I could stomach sitting through the original again from David Lynch. But yeah, General Gutrut. Actually, I love that name, by the way. I love it, General Gutrut. And look at Star Fox.
Ooh, Star Fox.
Yay! Tell Slippy I said hello. How about the Fallout show? That's fairly unique, kinda. Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Fallout 3, New Vegas, and even 4 to some extent. And they really nailed the vibe of the games in that show. I felt like it definitely doesn't fall into that, because we did a whole episode last week on like, was it not last week? It was the week before, about games and like the adaptations, right? Like it was at some point
Yeah.
we did an episode about that, and because the Fallout show had not come out at that point, but now that it has come out, they really nailed the vibe of the games.
Oh, good.
The first couple episodes, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he loved it from the get-go. The first couple episodes were kind of, I don't know what was going on with me at that point. I just was not really into it, the first 2 episodes, but I have a 3-episode rule. If I can't get into something by the 3rd episode, I stop watching it.
Yeah.
And I may try again like years later and see if it was just like the time I was going through something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the 3rd episode, I don't know what happened between episode 2 and 3, but man, I was fucking hooked. I was like,
Yeah.
we ended up binging it over like the course of 3 days, which I don't like week to week, but I normally like to watch, like I'll watch a couple episodes, maybe one day, and then maybe an episode the next day, kind of let it all sink in. And then, over the course of like 5 days, I normally finish like an 8-episode series. But no, we kind of finished this in like about 2.5 days. I think we started it on a Friday night, and by Sunday afternoon we were done. And man, like I really loved the vibe of it. Loved the characters. I loved a lot of what they were doing like with it, and they kind of didn't shy away from all the violence and everything that you can get with like the bloody mess perk in the game, which really there were times where I'm like, do they have the bloody mess perk enabled? Because holy crap. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I will say that like I do, and this is a personal preference, and so we're kind of getting into the art side of things, kind of tie this in with what we're talking about. The whole show was shot in anamorphic with spherical lenses. So if none of you guys are like, if for those that aren't like kind of technical nerds about that, that means that like the focus generally will be pretty soft throughout the whole image. Even things that are in focus aren't particularly like tack sharp. Now I don't mind like anamorphic. We're talking about, kind of like think of kind of some of the I think Jaws was shot anamorphically. A lot of the later Steven Spielberg movies shot anamorphically. Christopher Nolan shoots a lot anamorphically, but he also uses spherical lenses a lot. So you get that kind of like nothing's really ever tack sharp. It kind of like
Abrams.
Yeah. But like there's a difference between just anamorphic and spherical. This was shot with a lot of spherical lenses outside of maybe like the drone shots, because there's a lot of drone shots of the wasteland and the vistas and everything in the movie, the TV show. It's going to say game, and then I went to movie, but it's a TV show. The only thing I didn't like about that was I actually had to switch over to HDR10, because for whatever reason, the Dolby Vision version on my LG C1 through Amazon Prime was like severely macro blocked. It was strange. And like the grain was really prominent in the Dolby Vision versions, but HDR10 it wasn't. So I don't know if that was, maybe it's just my end, like maybe there's a encoding error, but yeah, like the kind of soft focus throughout a lot of the shots can sometimes be a distraction to me, even though like I know it was like intentional. It's not something I necessarily agree with, even though I'm kind of like a film nerd, especially for like modern things. It's typically used a lot in movies with a lot of like effects to kind of mask more poor effects. But like there was very few things in this show that I thought were poorly done. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, other than that, that's like kind of a nitpick. That's really it. Like,
that's on Prime Video, isn't it?
Yes.
Interesting you mentioned that, because the new Sony TVs that are coming out apparently have Prime Video optimization.
Anthony actually
So
says the HDR10. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. The HDR10 was super macro blocked too, so it wasn't just me. Okay, there were like I remember in the Dolby Vision version, like they were in the vault. This is like episode 1 or 2, and like there was like something white or like kind of grayish in the background, and like I was watching the macro blocking change like to like a kind of a red tint in that. I was like, because it cut to the shot and I thought it was intentional, and then it started
Yeah.
moving and I was like, oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I haven't watched the show yet, but
Well, I'll spoil it for you. So everybody just close your ears. They're on an island called the whole time they thought they were on Westeros. They're actually on Easteros. Anyway, no, sorry.
yeah. So when I get the Sony TV, that's probably one of the shows I'm going to watch to see what this Prime Video optimization is all about. See if there's any difference. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun.
Oh yeah. Jared actually says this is 100% true. You know, Elon and I are a part of the home theater community. If you could tell, I don't know, by the content we make. What? But no, like, yeah, a lot of people seem to just focus on the kind of big tentpole movies, and you know, like you, I do enjoy some of those, but I also like indie films and older movies. I mean, I watch older movies a lot, like even ones that don't have 4K Blu-rays. You know, they may only have like 1080p, you know, Blu-ray or like Blu-rays out, if that.
Yeah.
A lot of comedies from the 80s, you know, may never see a 4K Blu-ray. Heck, some movies may never see a Blu-ray, you know, for that matter. So it's like, how do we get the best quality of these movies? I remember like when Real Genius came out in 4K Blu-ray, I was like amazed, because this is like, to me, is like a movie that a lot of people, to my knowledge, have not heard of. It's a Val Kilmer movie from the 80s, you know? It's kind of like, okay, like I would honestly expect Pauly Shore movies to come out before this. I'm like, because like he's, you know, Encino Man and Son-in-Law and all that stuff. But like, you know, this is a classic like 80s film that I don't think did well at the box office. You know, similar to like Just One of the Guys, which is another like classic 80s comedy. You know, I don't know if we'll ever see a 4K Blu-ray of that, or Better Off Dead, you know, like these old school. And I'm mainly, you know, focused on comedies, but like, you know, if we go back and, you know, we're watching some stuff like The Maltese Falcon or The Bicycle Thief, or, you know, even like really old, like kind of propaganda films from like the 30s, you know, the 20s and 30s, and like D.W. Griffith films, all that stuff. Even something like there's the original, it's touted as like the original sci-fi movie, Metropolis, from I think it was 1929.
Yeah,
I
was gonna say
think
30s, but you might be right.
Yeah. I think I'm going to look it up because it's been a while. 1927, so I was close. I mean, yeah, it's a silent film. You know, not everybody's going to be into that. Totally understand. But man, is it like, it's kind of, you know, that feeling when you watch like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you're like, they predicted so much.
Yeah.
To see a 1927 film do what it was doing then, it literally, like, we wouldn't have sci-fi films if that film was never made. You know, like it was just kind of crazy to watch. But like, you know, Great Train Robbery, like all these like really old films, you know, before sound was even a thing. It was all like, you know, like watching Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin stuff. I really like that stuff. And yeah, like I know that if this stuff has not been preserved well, doing like remasters of it's kind of next to impossible. But I would still honestly love to just get a 4K scan of this stuff on Blu-ray. You know, it doesn't even have to be HDR. Like, it could just be like, I mean, we're talking about, you know, a movie from 1927. You know, they did a great job restoring Wizard of Oz on 4K Blu-ray. So they could do something with, you know, Casablanca, or Even like, am I wrong about this? Did Amelie recently come out on 4K Blu-ray?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
got it a couple weeks
Oh,
ago. Well,
have
it
to let me
wasn't
know.
4K. It's just Blu-ray.
Oh, okay. But
Just Blu-ray, but it was a steelbook. But even then, it had been the first time it was available on Blu-ray in the
yeah,
United States ever. Because I mean, you could technically get a Blu-ray beforehand that was, from a foreign country, but it cost an arm and a leg just to get it.
yeah.
And I wasn't sure, how decent the picture quality was going to be anyway. So yeah, I was really excited because that's honestly top five, in my top five movies of
Yeah.
all time that I personally enjoy. So
The cinematography in that film is insane. It's
yeah,
one of
man.
one of my favorites that I would honestly love to see like a 4K Blu-ray of that. I don't know if
You would
we'll
too.
ever get it, but yeah, I mean, to kind of go back to what Jared was saying, I love the indie films. We tend to stick to, like in the home theater community, those big kind of tentpole releases because mainly the audio for most people. Sometimes like also oftentimes like the visuals, but like if something has a good audio mix, I'm guilty of this too. I'll sit through a bad movie
Yeah.
if it sounds good. If the movie is bad and the sound just kind of is like not really doing anything for me, I'm not gonna finish it.
Yeah.
You know, it's how I sat through Gran Turismo and Need for
I
Speed, and
yes, I heard that has a very
it's
good.
great. A great audio mix is the movie was just kind of like I probably wouldn't watch it again. Same with like Need for Speed was awful. The like I can't remember what year that came out with Jesse Pinkman. Um,
Right.
it was just like yo bitch the whole time. Like yeah, but I'm also not a car guy. So like I don't
Yeah.
I'm not into cars. I don't or motorcycles or anything like that. You guys don't want to watch Torque from like the early 2000s?
I think one of the few, haven't seen it in a long time, but one of the few movies that I sat through that I knew was pretty bad, but still sat through it because of the stunning visuals was The Cell with Jennifer Lopez and Vincent
Yes.
D'Onofrio. That was, that had some gorgeous cinematography. I mean,
Man,
hands
that
down.
was
And
that,
really interesting set pieces too.
yeah. Man, that was a late 90s New Line cinema at its finest there.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, we're talking about like Final Destination,
Yeah.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare, like
Mhm.
we could do a whole episode just based on like old movies and we just literally the whole episode is me and you just saying old movies from like a certain era. 70s, it's like,
Oh,
um,
remember?
yeah. Remember when
Remember
Easy
that?
Rider came out? Jack Nicholson was in it. But yeah, I mean, you know, I don't ever expect like you did a video, Elin, talking about Heat, the gun shootout in Heat.
Oh, I did a short on that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. You did a short, and I think it was like the
Yeah.
kind of final shootout and the kind of
Yeah, the
where it
final
just
one.
sounded. You're like it just didn't sound right. Like it didn't sound good.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just I would have appreciated it a little bit more if they had more near field microphones picking up the actual firing of the guns. But I get it. I get it that Michael Mann was being Michael Mann and recording the audio on set.
Do you know
Um,
the full story about this? About
oh,
what happened with this? I
if
brought it
you
up only because I watched a behind the scenes documentary about it, but
oh,
like
okay.
yeah. Continue what you're saying, but I'll it's interesting that
Yeah. But it kind of took me out of it, at least as an audience member,
mhm,
just hearing the reflections off of the nearby buildings.
yeah,
But I know that if I were in that situation, like physically there, if there was a shootout happening in downtown Los Angeles, I would be terrified because it would sound like that
yeah,
with all
yeah,
these gunshots reverberating everywhere. It would be yeah, just absolutely terrifying, and I would be shitting my pants. But as a moment in cinema, yeah, I just kind of wish the impact would have been a little bit more focused, and I could have heard, the actual sound of the shots happening instead of just the reflections.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just my
Yeah.
take. But I get it. I get what Michael Mann was going for. And I still totally respect him as a director because he is still one of the few directors that is so meticulous,
Yeah.
especially with sound design. This new, what is it? Ferrari. That film that's coming out from Michael Mann. I saw a little blurb from Adam Driver, who's in it, talking about the great lengths that they went to just to get authentic sounds of those
Oh,
cars
wow.
going on roads, going through a particular tunnel. So yeah, he's crazy. He's crazy about authenticity. So I love how he's sticking with that
Yeah.
and not just becoming lazy because of, technology's getting better or whatever. He's still OCD about that kind of stuff, and I like it. But
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead with your story behind the scenes.
The story. It is funny because you say he's not getting lazy, but there was I just remember I remember watching Public Enemies with Johnny Depp, and there's a few scenes where they just replaced Johnny Depp's head, or like replaced the stunt double's head with Johnny Depp, and it was so awful. Like, just don't do it. But no, so the story behind the whole shootout in Heat was obviously Michael Mann was there on the day. He remembers shooting it. They captured all the on-location audio. They got it in the edit. He handed it off to his sound team, and they went through and they just replaced all the gun sound effects, and they had ricochets and reverberations and everything. And he listened to it and he said, "Thank you guys for doing such a great job." Removed all of that and went with the on-location audio because what they did not capture authentically, as you were saying, what he heard on the set and what it would actually sound like. To him, it sounded too Hollywood, too processed, too like, but my thing was I was like, okay, that's great. But couldn't there have been an in-between? Like, I wasn't there. I don't know
Yeah.
if they were under time constraints or what, but like, couldn't he have said, okay, we need to dial all of this back because I want to hear more of the actual ricochets off the walls and everything, but we need to make this legible for the viewer. But maybe that was not his intent. Again, this comes down to what his intention was, and that was like, was he trying to make it seem like you were like, if you were experiencing this yourself, this is what it would sound like, down to like, and we've seen it before in movies where it's like, I don't like who's winning in this fight. I have no idea. Like I can't tell what's going on. Like, it's so, I think there is a, like, I'm not talking about Michael Mann specifically, but in movies with like fight scenes and stuff, there is a thin line or a fine line between being kind of lazy in that we didn't really like frame a lot of this, and we're trying to make it seem like the actor can actually fight when they can't.
Right. Yeah.
Versus like, let's make this legible for the audience, which is why I like a lot of the old like Jackie Chan and a lot of the old kung fu movies, especially like Jackie Chan movies, because a lot of his fight scenes, if you watch even some of his more recent films, they're oneers, they're one shots. They're not cutting away constantly. Whereas like we go back to the Marvel movies, they do the classic thing, high shutter speed,
cut.
right? So it makes the action feel faster,
Right.
even though we could see more of the frame. The high shutter speed helps in kind of masking some of that motion
Right.
of the punches not connecting. But then they'll actually do full on like visual effects, fist replacement. I can't even talk right now. Fist replacements. So like, if it's a shot, it's like a 2-shot, and the guy doesn't really connect. Well, they will go in and digitally extend his arm for like 3 frames to have it connect.
What?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of that happens in the Marvel movies. I absolutely guarantee you. So props to the visual effects artist because Elon didn't even notice.
Well, I mean, for if it's for 3 frames.
Yeah. You mean you're not going to go frame by frame like I do on those movies? I kid. No, I think it's been covered on like, there's quite a few like channels, but like Video Copilot, I think a long time ago did a video where they showed how they do it. And it's even been covered on like the Corridor Digital, like visual effects artists react, some of the earlier episodes. So sometimes it's really obvious, but other times it's not as obvious, especially if the camera's all over the place anyway. Like if it's a kind of a, born identity type of situation where it's like Paul Greengrass can't like stop the camera from moving ever. You just got a drill and it's constantly like shaking the camera in the background.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like going back to Heat. I mean, yeah, I just wish there was some sort of middle ground that Michael Mann could have gotten to. I mean, I didn't expect it to be overly Hollywood and, hearing every single ricochet and stuff. But yeah, I wish he would have just taken what the sound design people had done and just lowered it a bit.
Yeah.
You could hear it to a degree.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Yeah. I always think of the gunshots in Collateral with Tom Cruise. It's another Michael Mann movie.
Yeah.
But like the whole briefcase scene, I always called it "Yo, homie, is that my briefcase?"
Right.
Where he shoots the guy and the way the shots like have that impact, that initial snap, but then like you hear the ricochet for like 10 seconds afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we're talking about Heat, which was made in like what, the late 80s, early 90s?
Early 90s?
Yeah, I think it was like 90, I want to say 93.
Possibly.
I haven't seen it in forever.
Yeah. 93 was Jurassic
95.
Park.
95.
Okay.
So I wouldn't expect a 95 movie to have the same dynamics and everything as, a movie that came out. And I think that was like 2004-ish, Collateral.
Yeah. No.
And I mean, we're talking about mid 90s. I mean, yeah, some of the movies from the mid 90s sound amazing. I mean, when's the last time you watched the original Jumanji?
Long time.
Yeah, but they really, I mean, it sounds great. Again, though, you have to go in expecting a mid 90s movie unless they're doing a full on remix.
Right.
But typically, if they're doing a remix, they're not replacing assets. They're just remixing it, and they might end up EQing some kind of harshness out of something. But yeah, a lot of the gunshots from like the 80s and 90s all kind of sound that Hollywood, like super processed. You know that sound.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Very compressed.
Yeah. Although I will say one of the best sounding movies from the 90s, I think, still is Last Action Hero. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, really?
Yes. Jolgins. He said the reverb in those movies made me think my RT60 was way off. If I'm not hearing the Wilhelm scream off to my left, something's wrong from one of those movies. But yeah, no, sometimes a reverb, it kind of went a little crazy with the reverb back in the day.
Yeah.
They're like, let's just crank it up. It'll hide Steven Seagal's inability to do really anything.
Which is true even now.
Yeah. If he's watching this, I don't know why you wouldn't be watching this.
Steven.
Please don't kill me. Yeah. But all right. Well, I think we might have some questions and comments where we kind of hit our 2-hour mark. So
I think I saw a couple of GQ questions.
Yeah, I think I marked 1 or 2 of them. But if you guys have a general question, feel free to ask it now, or topical question, or just a whatnot. We're going to kind of wrap things up here. We always try to keep it around 2 hours. Otherwise, Elon gets really cranky. Back around
Me.
the 2 hour and 20-minute mark. Wouldn't like me when I'm angry. But yeah, I think I had Stephen McNeely. This was from way earlier. What angle should I place my subwoofers in the corners? 45 degrees optimum. I mean, if we're talking about angle of the actual driver,
Yeah.
I've never, unless, honestly, unless you're crossing over your subwoofer at really high, we're talking about like 150, like basically anything above 120. Like if you're like, I have really tiny speakers, and I'm crossing my subwoofer, like I have to cross those over because I just can't handle anything below that.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would matter too much, the actual angle of the driver in the listening position. I've seen people angle it in. I've seen people like towards the listening position.
Right.
I'm personally a fan of just along the side of the wall. Like just angle it. Like don't angle it because it's omnidirectional. Like you're not really going to be able to, again, unless you're crossing it like crossing your speakers over super high because you have to, you're not going to be able to localize that sound. So you're like, unless maybe you're trying to get some, I don't know, like vibration. I don't even think that, depending on how far you are, it really wouldn't make sense. Unless I'm just misreading this completely.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think angles really matter
I
for
don't
the
know.
actual driver.
Would the angles make a difference listening to music though? Because you want that precision to be on beat.
Again, I don't. I personally don't think so. Like that's more of like a, you're looking at the transient response. I don't think angling the driver is going to change the transient response, which is how
Yeah.
fast it stops and starts. Like if you have a sub, like you benefit more if you have a sub that can be run in sealed mode to go that route when you're listening to music, because that will tighten up that it will just tighten things up. Like it will be more reactive. Like it will have a kind of a shorter transient response, if that's the right verbiage there. Which is what I've noticed. You can even measure it in Remake Wizard if you're so inclined to do that. I've noticed, like with the SVS subs I have running in sealed mode, actually they arrive sooner than they do when running in ported mode, just by a slight margin, but like
Yeah.
it's noticeable, and that just partly has to do with the transient response, as well as like with SVS, you can tell it. I have it in sealed mode, or I have it in ported mode, whatever. So yeah, I would think you would have more, unless you're running sealed. I don't really think it's worth overthinking that,
Yeah.
especially if you have multiple subs. It's completely like irrelevant at that point to angle them at
True.
all. Like if you have 4 subs, don't even like. If it's an aesthetic thing and you like the way it looks, that's one thing. But
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't really make a difference.
Oh.
Here's one for you from Gary. Single sub, Dirac, then REW on mini DSP, or REW mini DSP sub flat, then Dirac.
second
Order of operations.
order of operations. Yeah, REW mini DSP. I will say this too: if you have a sub with parametric EQ, play around with
do
it.
that first.
Play around with it first, to see if you are introducing any further input delay, or delay by enabling the DSP. This came up last week in the stream, because someone said if you're using a DSP, they can sometimes introduce latency, which can throw off your eventual calibration and getting it in line with your mains, arriving at the same time. Which honestly, if you're using a mini DSP, it's pretty much impossible to ever get it perfect, because the mini DSP adds between, I think I measured it recently, it was like around 6 milliseconds of delay. So it's always going to be 6 milliseconds too late. You can try to do some tricks to get things to arrive at the right time by like adding distance to all your speaker. But then like honestly, I've never successfully got it right on the money. So with that said, again, order of operations, if you have parametric EQ on the sub itself, flatten out that first, like cut down on the high peaks, right? Don't boost it at all with that parametric EQ. And then do mini DSP. You can do the sub flat. You can also do a house curve if you want, or you can let Dirac handle that. If you're going to do flat, I would make sure that the volume is slightly higher than what you need it. And so that way you can bring it down and then have Dirac like kind of hit that target curve that you want. Or if you just want it flat through Dirac, I would still make it just a slightly louder. That way you have the capability of saying, oh, I'm listening to music, I want to boost the sub by like 3 or 4 dB. You can easily do that without actually going into like the plus volume on like the mini DSP, for instance. Like you can just at like if you're at like -7, you can just go to -3, for instance, on the input side of the mini DSP. So yeah, hope that helps.
Yeah.
You could also just disable correction completely in Dirac for the sub if you want to, and just do the mini DSP with everything. Just depends how fine you want that line. Some people get really like focused on like how smooth that line is, and honestly, sometimes it can make things a little. It can kind of cause you a lot of grief when really you're you know, getting maybe half a percent extra performance.
Not worth it.
Thing is, play around and see what sounds best to you. I think that's ultimately, I could only give you guidelines and like best practices, but like there's nothing wrong with like experimenting and finding what you like. I always say that.
Nothing wrong.
Nothing wrong with that. Experiment. You know?
Yeah, dude.
You guys ever? No, just kidding. I was going to go to a very not safe for live stream conversation there. But yeah, thank you, Gary, for the question. Let's see. I got another one here. This is related to TV shows. Can you guys talk about the new Roadhouse? Thoughts?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. I can briefly talk about the old Roadhouse. I saw it once. Not a favorite of mine, so wasn't really interested in the show. And yeah, I don't know. Just kind of looked a little not my cup of tea. Just say that.
Yeah. I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal got jacked for it. But
yeah, but I mean,
really all I know.
I could have got jacked for it. You know, it's just
whoa.
Next thing,
Shots
next live stream, I'd be
fired.
like, yeah, just call me Jack Reacher.
Reacher. What about this latest question? Andy V, can you time align mains manually with Dirac?
I'm not sure. I haven't used Dirac in years. That's a good question.
If you had one of those Dirac mini DSPs.
Yeah, I mean, he might be talking about mains. Like he's talking about mains. So like we're talking about like the bed layer and the heights. I would say if you can, again, it's been years, so forgive me. If you can adjust distance post Dirac, then yes. Like that's how I time align.
Right.
On my speakers. Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, like I don't have an answer for you. I could Google it. Let me Google that for you.
No.
But I don't want to give like wrong information. You know, like I don't want to look at one thing and someone says, yes, you can. And then it turns out you can't. So all I can say is based off my experience, I could not But this again, whenever I made the video a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I could not. So, but it may have changed. I also was not using it on a receiver. I was using it on a computer. So that can have an effect.
I hear that's the way to go though with Dirac.
Use a computer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you
versus the mobile app.
I didn't even see. I did not even know they had a mobile app. So that's how far behind I am with it.
Honestly, I haven't even done anything with Dirac yet. I have an AVR that supports it.
Why are you even alive, bro? No. Anthony did bring up a good point though. Is that moving the sub? This is in reference to angling the sub earlier. Mm-hmm. It may affect the nulls and peaks. So I would definitely measure it both ways, like angled and then, just 45 degrees or whatever, whatever you had it set up at originally, and see if the performance has changed at all. In some rooms, it can change pretty drastically just by moving it an inch. In other rooms, it might be exactly the same. So it's hard to really say. Even Anthony mentioned, like moving the sub an inch can affect that. Yeah. I remember in my old house, like I could move the sub literally it was like placed in an area where, like, if I moved it 2 or 3 feet within that area, the frequency response stayed exactly the same. The volume never even changed. It was weird.
Whoa.
I've never seen that since. And I think it was just like where the seating was and where the sub was. It was like right in an area where it was like already just a weird place, It was also a very open room, so like it led into the kitchen and to the hallway that led to the bedrooms and to the master bedroom, and it was just hard to control one sub, which is why I ended up with like 3 in that room. And now I have 4 in like a little 11 by 12 room, Whatever. Get headroom for days. Let's see. Anthony also says, super good tip in Odyssey, Denon, Marantz. The sub level needs to be minus 6 dB or less. Otherwise, it clips the LFE, I think. Makes a big difference. I think he's like, I've always said that, like, if you've run Odyssey, like through the app or whatnot, and it sets your sub level to like plus, like, I can't even remember what it used to be. It was always like you wanted it to be between 0 and minus 6. You never wanted it to be positive. Otherwise, it could you could run into clipping. But I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't know if multi-QX changes that. I don't like. Yeah, if you don't have it like with multi-QX, if you're using like REW, I don't know if that applies as well. But I already have my sub at like minus, like my sub, all of my subs, they're already pretty low.
Yeah.
And I've never noticed any like clipping distortion, even at like near reference, which I calibrate to. Like occasionally I'll listen to something at crazy, like -2, just for the hell of it, just to see. Woo. Yeah. The John Wick Chapter 3 shotgun scene. Just really feel it like right here,
Yeah.
Just want to see if I can like blow anything, like a heart valve or, just get that
my
brown
body
note.
handled today.
Right. But yeah, no, I'll have to look into that. But I've never noticed any clipping or anything, even when doing like compression tests, which I normally jack because when you do that, you're only playing from the sub. So I normally keep my sub volume, like trim level, at like whatever. Like it's never positive, but it's always like 0 or -1.5 dB or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, because I do everything on the mini DSP side, and I just don't want to add anything extra on the receiver side. Anyway, yeah. Do we have any more things? Questions?
I don't know if you've ever played Mass Effect.
Played first one when it came out on the Xbox 360. That was it. I would be curious to see, because they ran that franchise into the ground on the game side, like with Mass Effect Andromeda, which was just god awful from like all accounts. I tried it. I played the first one through and through. Like I beat it. I couldn't get into the second or third, and they really dropped the ball in the fourth. Like it's been universally like criticized for very good reason. Yeah, because I think they had like a whole different game and they had to scrap it. Maybe I'm thinking of something different. Damn it, it's getting late.
Do you think it would translate to a show or a film?
I mean, it could. I mean, it's sci-fi. A lot of I mean, it's hard. Like, I don't know, because see, the Halo show has also been pretty garbage. So like, yeah, I think they would really need to kind of put the kind of love and care that they've put into like Fallout and The Last of Us to make sure that that translates over well. Otherwise, like, we'll get like another Resident Evil or like another, like insert movie game here. It's or movie game, a game to movie adaptation here because I could see if like a series. I don't know necessarily a movie. I think I'm going to say this right now. I think we may be seeing how big the success of like Fallout's been and The Last of Us. I think video games we maybe start seeing less of movies and more TV shows. Because if you think about it, it's hard to it's content, but you have a game that could be completed, let's say in 15 hours. Now you got to kind of, let's say you just carbon copy that over to a movie. You have like maybe 2.5 hours really to tell that same story. Whereas like a show, if you're doing 8 episodes, about an hour, you got 8 hours of storytelling there that you can now. And I think that's why we may start seeing, especially video game adaptations. I feel like they work really well as like a TV show format because there's just more time to tell that story and to really focus on the beats that matter. Obviously changes do need to be made, but for the most part, I think that I would like to see, actually, I'd like to see Mass Effect set like a Mass Effect show, but like not about the main characters from the game. Kind of like what Fallout did. In that universe would be great, but I don't know if we want to see like a direct, like, like for like translation there. So,
and as long as you hire a director, because I think both The Last of Us and Fallout, the original game developers or writers or whoever was behind the story of the game itself,
they were producers. Yeah. So like Neil Druckmann was part of the Last of Us show as well as the creative director of the game, and then Todd Howard is the creative director for like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, and I think it was 76. I don't know. We don't include that. But like he was involved in it too. I think they're like executive producer roles. Yeah. But yeah, you need competent directors and writers like Jonathan Nolan. Coincidentally, Christopher Nolan's brother. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But he doesn't speak with a British accent, which throws me.
He doesn't?
No, he was raised in, I think he was born in the UK, but raised in like, I don't know, Wisconsin or something. I don't know where he was. I think he was raised in the United States, I think. So he's doesn't have an accent.
Go figure.
Yeah. But I think we have one last thing here. Are we getting the next Breaking Bad, or where are we getting the next Breaking Bad or Sopranos? Golden Age of TV is dead, David Chase has said. I don't know, man. Like, I don't think we'll get anything close to Breaking Bad or Sopranos anytime soon. That's just me. What's funny is, my wife has never seen Breaking Bad. And I was like, let's watch it. and we got through like the first 2 episodes, and she was like, "I don't think I can watch this. Like it's too
Same with my
intense."
wife. Yeah, yeah.
And I totally get it. And you know what? Honestly, I didn't want to I don't think it's something that I want to rewatch. As much as I enjoyed it the first time around, I don't. It's kind of like I have a friend who rewatches The Sopranos so much, and I'm like, to me, I'm like, not knowing what's going to happen was part of the whole like thing, and now I know it's like this isn't a the Sixth Sense. It's not an M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
Right.
Like I don't really need to rewatch it. I'll rewatch certain scenes. Honestly, some of them don't hold up. I'll just say that with Breaking Bad, the whole Gus Fring scene in the hospital. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't watched the show that aired 15 years ago. But yeah, that was, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a great show. Sopranos, same thing. I don't think I don't know. I don't think we're going to get shows like that again.
Because back then it was, especially with Sopranos, it was totally new.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking having this basically cinematic quality show on HBO.
Yeah. I mean, look at like, I remember watching Dexter. You know, Dexter was one of my favorite shows until they just shit the bed with the ending. And I was like, I can never watch this again, knowing how it ends. I always tell people, if you're going to watch it, they've never seen it, stop at the last season. Don't even pretend like season 5 or whatever. That was it. Nothing past that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think. Yeah. I mean, if we do get it, something like that. I mean, and I think they keep trying, like.
Yep.
But I don't know if something will hit like those again,
Mm-hmm.
Seems a lot of people are into like the fantasy genre, so like Game of Thrones is like really big, but I don't think we'll ever get like another Breaking Bad or something. I mean, it could be proven wrong. I couldn't get in.
Technically, Breaking Bad, that was AMC. So
Yeah.
that was, basic cable.
Yeah.
That wasn't like direct to
Yeah.
streaming.
I mean, you guys remember when The Walking Dead was actually good? You remember back then?
That was
when
also AMC. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Mad Men. I mean, that was another show that was fantastic, but I don't know. The golden age of TV might be dead.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because again, it's not about the art. It's about
The money.
filling time. And
That is true. Well, on that note, I think I'm going to call it there. Elon, do you have anything you'd like to add to this?
not really.
No?
Yeah. We've come full circle.
Come full circle. I will say that Anthony did mention in the very last bit here. Don't think I can rewatch Lost, but I liked it. I agree. Again though.
Yeah,
That ending. And you know what? You know what killed it for me? The week to week waiting. And then the last episode, they kept pushing. They're like, it's coming in a week. Actually, no, it's 2 weeks. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Real quick, Joel asks, is there a way to combine both chats? The only way I know of is to stream to just one channel. So I don't think there's a way to like combine them on YouTube. We see them both on EV Mux.
Yeah, we do.
Good luck. But I think like I wish there was a way.
I know.
Maybe we just create an eyes and ears channel just for the live stream. Who knows? Would you guys help us get monetized super fast if we did that? It's all about money for us too. It's all about money. But yeah. All right. Well, I mean, thank you guys so much for joining. We're gonna do this again next week. Different topic, obviously. Let us know if you rewatch this. If you have any topic ideas, not that we are running out or anything like that, but we want to know what you guys are interested in too. Doesn't even have to be home theater. Could be something cinema or nerdy, techie, computer stuff, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah.
We will consider it. Don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels. Guys, turn it into like one of those things. Check us out on Patreon. We don't have a. I don't think I think we each have our own separate Patreon, but we don't have an Eyes and Ears Patreon.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you guys for chilling out with us for a couple hours, and hope you enjoyed the conversation. I know we had a lot of fun talking about it, and yeah, we will see you here next week, hopefully.
Yay.
Yay. Bye. Take care, guys. See ya.